One afternoon, back in 2009 or 2010, a man set off into the wilderness somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, north of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Not long afterward, he published a poem and a book, The Thrill of the Chase. In this book set close to 500,000 people from various places all over the nation and the world in search of a relatively small box made of brass. This box, filled with his collection of precious gold nuggets, jewels, coins, and other rare items, might as well be a shiny needle in a really big haystack. I mean, who in their right mind wouldn't be curious? After all, many of us are interested in a puzzle or a mystery every now and then. And most of us are certainly interested in finding the treasure. As I found out quickly, though, the poem and the book are rather vague. Every time I searched a lead, someone had already been there and combed the area and found nothing. So I began to read everything about Forrest Fenn, including his old Santa Fe Trading Post blog, the scrapbooks, interviews, and watched nearly every video I could find on the subject. I wanted to get inside his head, figure out how he thinks, and if, using his writings, I could put myself in his mental shoes and walk where he walked in the past, maybe I could understand where, why, when, and how he secreted the box in a significant place. It's a place that might look very ordinary to most of us, but it's significant to him. Understanding the significance is why you need to read the scrapbooks and everything else he's written, if you're serious about finding the treasure. As a rock hound and a nascent jewelry maker, I do enjoy hiking into the wilderness of various kinds to look for pretty rocks and metal detect for shiny, sparkly things. I also love a good puzzle, and I usually solve them. This one, though, is a lot more tricky than most. His narrative voice is deceptively simple, yet it is a Gordian knot woven from his own special brand of stream of consciousness symbolism. But it's not impossible. You just have to turn it over and over until you figure out how to unravel it. Where warm waters halt. I believe that this is a poetic description of his book, a description of a time in his life, a certain time that he frequently travels back to in his mind, and it is a physical description of the region where the chest has been placed. Again, that's my opinion. At first glance, Forrest Fenn seems to be a fairly regular, down-to-earth kind of guy. But after reading many of his writings, I've come to believe that he's a lot more complicated than people realize. His poem doesn't seem to be a list of directions, but rather it's a description of a place, one that he had in mind when he hid the treasure. In my opinion, for whatever it's worth, I believe that if I was standing in the right place, I'd be able to look around 360 degrees and notice the things in the scenery around me that line up perfectly with the clues in the poem. Much like the glittering waters that flow in arterial fashion through the great sleeping beast that is the Rocky Mountains, if you look deeper under the surface, you'll begin to see things you didn't expect. Like many other searchers, I haunted the forums, trying to glean information about the chase. Being as I was laid off last summer and forced into a sort of early retirement, I had more than a little time in my hands. The poem and its cryptic language fascinated me. Forrest's stories spoke to me. I found out quickly that many of the places that occurred to me to look had been gone over, and so I wondered what all of us had been doing wrong. Why hadn't the treasure been found? And it's been 10 years. The only conclusion I can come to is that chasers dismissed something very important early on. People relying solely on physical descriptions of places and left-brain logic have not found it. I think the reason why has to do with Fenn's key word, which is imagination. I do believe that he said imagination was key. And not just imagination, but curiosity about people. And I think this is what this sudden burst of extra scrapbooks that Forrest Fenn has just put out and what they're trying to say. He's telling us to wander away from the left side logic, the logical thinking, and head over to the more abstract, lateral thinking, right side of the brain, the creative side. And that's the part you're using when you use your imagination. You go down those rabbit trails, you speculate, you wander through the crazy side of your mind, turn over a rock, a log or two, and you find something previously left unthought of. I think of the chase as a 10,000-piece puzzle. I have nothing solid to go by, just the book and the poem, more or less telling me how to put it together. But how do you put together any puzzle if you don't know what it's supposed to look like? Well, start with the edges. Find the things that you do know, fit those pieces together and create a frame, a box if you will, and think inside that. Then sort the remaining pieces by relevance and fit them in one by one until the picture that Forrest Fenn wants you to see begins to take shape. And that's where all of his other writings come in, at least for me. They give a window into his mind. You can't understand his thought process unless you try to reverse engineer where his mind was in the years between his childhood and 2009, when he had finally decided to set off into the wood and place the chest. Based on what I've seen so far, you're going to have to skip down those rabbit trails, and you're going to have to go down them no matter how weird they are. Become good at picking things up, measuring them, and if they don't fit into the puzzle, set them aside for later contemplation. You're going to be coming back to them. I can't tell you how many times I've noticed something odd in my research, forgot about it, and then later reminded of it when it comes up again as something else that seemed completely unrelated, and I'm sure other searchers will agree. Forrest said that figuring out this puzzle was going to be difficult, a lot of work, but that the effort would be worth it. The stories of the two dolls, Chaos and Embroidery, remind me of something I heard once in creative writing class, that this is how all stories are formed. People are interested in hearing about chaos brought into order, and their attention is suspended and held by the skillful embroidery of the narrative craft. A good writer, like a fisherman, needs a good hook, a strong plot line, and a strong theme to reel his readers in. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm not interested in finding the treasure, but the puzzle itself fascinates me. And if I didn't find the treasure, that's okay too. Perhaps Forrest Fenn didn't realize just how difficult he'd made it, or maybe he was traveling in undiscovered mental territory after his bout with cancer, and now he wants to be the one to blaze a trail into that same headspace and bringing the rest of us with him. After having fought off cancer myself in 2010, which took 3 surgeries to save my life, I am familiar with the places that your mind goes when you're looking potential death right in the eye. And I was in my mid-40s at the time. I remember thinking about all the things that I'd left undone, unsaid, and unthought of. I spent a lot of time in the country of my own mind. And if I were to try to describe that place to other people outside, it would be difficult. But it seems to me that this is what Forrest Fenn is attempting to do. I think I can understand his incredible curiosity about people and things, his imagination and desire to be known, not famous, mind you, but to be understood as a person, especially to some unknown person in the future. I think the chest is a kind of homage, an atonement, or maybe just a way of paying his respects to someone who's moved on. This is why I think the blaze has to do with the person, and I can understand that too. So yeah, my humble opinion, the scrapbooks and all of Forrest Fenn's other writings do matter. Remember, he said that one of the lessons he learned from his father was to tell the truth, but not all of it. So he's given you part of the story, and now you have to figure out the rest. So you got to get into his head. The poem and the book are the place to begin, but the other writings are the color that fills in between the lines and brings the whole picture into focus. I hope that makes sense to some people, and if not, hey, I tried. Good luck to everyone out there searching for the treasure. I do hope someone finds it. Have a great day, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.